Welcome back, everyone. Today we're diving into some of the wildest conspiracy theories that actually turned out to be true. Buckle up, because this is going to be a crazy ride. You know, I've always been obsessed with conspiracies, like the kind of stuff that keeps you up at night Googling until 3 a.m. And let's be real, sometimes the truth is stranger than fiction. We're talking government cover-ups, secret societies, experiments on unsuspecting citizens, stuff that sounds like it's straight out of a movie, but it actually happened. So grab your tinfoil hats, guys, because things are about to get real. Okay. So picture this, it's the 1950s, the Cold War is in full swing, and the CIA is freaking out about the Soviets, right? They're like, we need to get ahead of the game, even if it means breaking every rule in the book. Enter MK Ultra. This was basically a top-secret CIA program obsessed with mind control. Seriously, they wanted to see if they could use things like hypnosis, drugs, LSD in particular, and even torture to, like, program people to become super spies or something. And get this, they weren't just experimenting on, like, willing volunteers. They were dosing up unsuspecting citizens, prisoners, even their own agents. People were literally turned into guinea pigs without even knowing it. The messed up part is that a lot of the MK Ultra records were destroyed, so we may never even know the full extent of what they did. They admitted to it in the 70s, but still, how much of this stuff is still going on that we don't know about? It's terrifying. This one is messed up on a whole other level. We're talking about the CIA secretly infiltrating newsrooms and using journalists to spread propaganda, like straight up manipulating the news to control what people believe. They called it Operation Mockingbird, which is just too perfect, right? They were basically trying to make the American public believe whatever they wanted by feeding us lies through the media. We're talking major news outlets here, guys. The CIA had their hooks in everywhere, and it worked for a while. People had no idea they were being fed a carefully constructed narrative. Thankfully, a Senate committee in the 70s actually uncovered this whole thing. Can you imagine the scandal? The government spying on its own people, using the media as a weapon. It's like something out of a dystopian novel. Guys, this one is truly heartbreaking. We're talking about the Tuskegee syphilis study, a 40-year experiment conducted on hundreds of African-American men in Alabama. These men, many of them poor sharecroppers, were told they were being treated for bad blood. But in reality, they were injected with syphilis without their knowledge or consent. Can you even imagine? And here's the even more sickening part. Even when penicillin became the standard treatment for syphilis, these men were denied access to it. The researchers wanted to study the long-term effects of the disease, even as these men suffered and died. This study went on for decades, guys. It wasn't until 1972, after a whistleblower came forward, that the public found out about this horrific abuse of power. It's a dark stain on the history of medicine and a reminder of how vulnerable we all are. Chapter 4. The Gulf of Tonkin Incident, starting a war based on a lie. Okay, this conspiracy theory is straight out of a history book, but it's one of those things they don't really teach you about in school. Basically, the Gulf of Tonkin incident was this alleged attack on US Navy ships by North Vietnamese forces in 1964. This attack was used as justification for the United States to escalate its involvement in the Vietnam War. Like, this was a major turning point, guys. It led to the deaths of millions of people. But here's the thing. It turns out the attack, at least the second one that was used to justify the war, probably never even happened. Like, it was a complete fabrication, possibly orchestrated by the US government to drum up support for the war. How messed up is that? A whole war based on a lie. It makes you wonder how many other conflicts have been started based on false pretenses, you know? Chapter 5, COINTELPRO 2. They really tried to silence dissent. So, you know how important it is to be able to speak your mind, right? Well, back in the 50s and 60s, the FBI was super paranoid about groups they considered subversive. We're talking civil rights activists, anti-war protesters, even feminist organizations. They created this program called COINTELPRO, which basically stood for Counterintelligence Program, but it was really just a fancy way of saying they were going to spy on and sabotage anyone they didn't agree with. We're talking wiretapping, spreading false rumors, infiltrating groups to sow discord, even instigating violence to discredit these movements. Like, They were playing dirty, guys. It wasn't until the 70s that COINTELPRO was exposed to the public, and people were like, wait, the government was spying on us for wanting peace and equality. It was a huge scandal, and it showed just how far they were willing to go to silence dissent. Chapter 6, the Iran-Contra affair, arms deals and secret plots. Okay, get ready for this one because it's juicy. This is like a political thriller come to life. So in the 1980s, the Reagan administration was really focused on fighting communism in Central America. They were supporting this group called the Contras in Nicaragua, who were trying to overthrow the socialist government there. But there was this pesky little thing called Congress, and they had passed a law saying the US couldn't fund the Contras anymore. So what did the Reagan administration do? They came up with a plan so shady it would make your head spin. They secretly sold weapons to Iran, who was our enemy at the time, and then used the money to fund the Contras. Like, they were literally funding both sides of a war, and they did it all in secret behind Congress's back. When this whole thing blew up, it became a huge scandal. People were indicted. Reagan's presidency was tarnished. And it just proved that sometimes the government is willing to go to crazy lengths to get what they want. Chapter 7. The Watergate Scandal. Even presidents aren't above the law. Okay, so Watergate, you've probably heard of it, but it's one of those things that's so wild, it's hard to believe it actually happened. It all started with a break-in at the Democratic National Committee headquarters at the Watergate Hotel in 1972. Seems random, right? But it turned out that the burglars were connected to President Richard Nixon's re-election campaign. Like, they were trying to plant bugs and steal documents to get dirt on their political opponents. This break-in spiraled into a massive scandal involving cover-ups, abuse of power, and obstruction of justice. Like, it went all the way to the top, guys. And the more they investigated, the more they realized that Nixon was deeply involved. Eventually, facing impeachment and overwhelming evidence against him, Nixon resigned in disgrace. Watergate showed that even the most powerful person in the country isn't above the law, and that the truth has a way of coming out, even if it takes a while. Chapter 8. The CIA and drugs. Wait, they did what? Okay, this one is messed up on so many levels. We're talking about allegations that the CIA was involved in drug trafficking, like actually helping to smuggle drugs into the United States. The theory goes that they were using the drug money to fund covert operations, like supporting the Contras in Nicaragua. Sound familiar? And there's actually quite a bit of evidence to support this, which is terrifying. There were congressional hearings, investigations, and whistleblowers who came forward with stories about the CIA's involvement in the drug trade, like they were allegedly working with drug lords and turning a blind eye to massive shipments of cocaine and heroin coming into the country. It's a dark and scary thought, right? That the very people who are supposed to be protecting us might have been profiting off of addiction and suffering. Chapter 9. The Bohemian Grove. What happens in the woods stays in the woods. Or does it? Okay, guys, this one is just plain creepy. The Bohemian Grove is this super secret campground in California where every year some of the most powerful men in the world get together for 2 weeks of, well, no one really knows for sure. We're talking politicians, CEOs, celebrities, you name it. They have these weird rituals, like burning an effigy in front of a giant owl statue, and they're sworn to secrecy, so no one really knows what goes on there. Some people think it's just a harmless boys' club, a place for the elite to let loose and blow off some steam, but others believe it's something much more sinister, like they're making backroom deals, deciding the fate of the world, or even engaging in some kind of dark occult practices. Whatever's going on there, it's definitely secretive and definitely weird. And it just goes to show that there are still some things in this world that are shrouded in mystery. Chapter 10. The NSA's mass surveillance. They're watching us, guys. This one isn't really a conspiracy theory anymore because it turned out to be totally true. Thanks, Edward Snowden. Remember him, the former NSA contractor who leaked classified documents revealing the massive extent of the government's surveillance programs. It turned out that the NSA was collecting phone records, emails, internet browsing history, you name it, on millions of Americans. Like they were basically spying on all of us all the time. They said it was all in the name of national security to prevent terrorism and all that, but it still felt like a huge invasion of privacy, you know? Like, who are they to be reading our emails and listening to our phone calls? The Snowden revelations sparked a huge debate about privacy and security, and they made us realize that in the digital age, we're all being watched. Outro, stay woke, my friends, and there you have it, folks. 10 conspiracy theories that turned out to be true. Which one shocked you the most? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more mind-blowing content. It's crazy, right? Like, the more you learn about this stuff, the more you realize that the world is a much stranger and more secretive place than we think. And it makes you wonder what else is out there, hidden in the shadows, waiting to be uncovered. So stay curious, my friends. Keep asking questions. Keep digging for the truth. And never be afraid to question what they tell you. Because sometimes, the craziest stories are the ones that turn out to be true.